I'm a little bit different than a fair number of people in that I see bad things happening, obviously, but I still believe strongly there's a lot of good and a lot of hope left. This one is of incredibly high concern to me. We are protecting children with this one. I don't know if you followed. So this is SB 152. I don't know if you followed that Utah had a bill that has basically said minors aren't supposed to use social media. And we put this out, and now we've said that the social media companies have to verify the age of a Utah resident, and if they're under 18, they have to get parental consent to open the account. At first, they had a proposal that completely banned teens from using any social media. But now, it's you have to get parental consent. But let's just talk for a second about, if I'm a business and the law says, hey Austin, you can get sued if you don't verify people's age. And you can't let anyone on the site that's not 18. Unless their parents approve. What do you do as a business at that point?
Yeah, you don't bother.
Well, no, they're going to bother because there's some stiff liability in here if they don't.
No, I'm saying they're not going to take the student. They're not going to take the kid at all.
Well, they may take the kid, but still, but okay, so that may be an initial response. But how do we know if someone's over 18?
You don't know.
So if you have to verify the child's age, what other age do you have to verify?
Parents.
Everybody's age, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no way not to, because if it's just, oh, you under 18, oh shoot, you got to go get your parental consent, then every kid's going to say I'm over 18, right? And that's what's happened. And so this says you have to verify everyone's age in Utah by March 1st, 2024.
What?
That's a year.
So every social media company has to, so you're going to get something that pops up and it says we have to verify your age. Now when this bill came out, the bill actually said how they had to verify your age. It said they had to get your driver's license, passport, or birth certificate.
Oh, no.
That created a lot of heat.
Yeah.
People said, no. And so they said, okay, we won't tell the social media company how they verify your age. We'll let them choose. But they have to verify your age. So did they change anything?
No.
How can a social media company verify age outside of those three things?
They can't.
Well, they can ask the question, but you can say whatever you want. So you can't verify.
Yeah.
Supposedly you could give them a credit card number, but that's not even going to work either.
No,
Yeah, I actually tried that. So I had to create a government account for my law firm to pay taxes, and they needed to verify me. And I tried the credit card number, and it wouldn't verify me.
Well, the credit card companies don't know your age.
Well, they should.
They should because
They should because of your social
when you fill out the
Oh, Social Security
application.
number, okay, all right, yeah.
And your credit card's supposed to be tied to your social.
Okay.
But kids hopefully don't have too many credit cards. I don't know.
How do they verify if they have parental consent? Anybody can sign it.
Well, I will. So again, think about what's happening right now. So
Like
now,
data.
so let's say with Gmail, for example, what do you do when you reach your 15 gig limit in Gmail?
You have to delete emails.
You just set up a new email account, right?
There
How
you
many of
go.
you have multiple email accounts with Gmail? I have multiple Gmail accounts, one for junk, one for personal, one for church, one for work, kind of thing.
Yep.
It helps keep things organized so well where if I don't have to see work stuff, I can take a break from work because I can just log in my personal one or whatever. On each of those accounts, do we have to say our birth date? Do we have to say our name? Can we create a business account? Can we do all these things that allow us to continue kind of using services? Google's probably got a pretty good idea that I'm connected, but they may not be able to fully prove it for everyone. But if every account now has to be verified, and they have to prove it's me, now all my accounts get funneled down to one place. So I now have to start paying for the additional services I get because I've reached the free limits or whatever. So the companies make a lot more money off this type of bill because now they have to verify who everybody is. But the other concern is, and this is something that happened to my wife a few years back, she was opposed to a bill that Utah was pushing through, and she emailed every single rep in Utah, which is a whole whopping 100 and something.
Yeah.
Not a lot. We're talking 106 or 4 or something around there. And Google said, you have violated our terms of use. You've shut down our account. It was just a boom. There was no warning. And they said it was unappealable and she could never access her account again.
Wow.
What? Good reason not to use Gmail.
So she can't access any of her emails that were.
20 years of emails, 20 years of contacts gone like that.
Because why?
She was emailing state reps to say, don't vote for this bill. And she emailed each one of them.
That's illegal.
Yeah, that's political.
So it was something like 100 and something emails.
Yeah.
We fought this for so long, tried everything we could to get back in, never was able to access the account again. But they didn't just fully shut down the account, they blocked her from it. So if you still email the account, it still, to the person, looks like it goes through. It doesn't say this
So
account's no longer
simple.
active.
Oh my gosh.
And so fascinatingly,
That's big brother for you.
so think about this now, if you have to verify who you are and you violate a term of use, you can never get back on the site. You're toast. Because before now you could just switch your birth date, you could do whatever and get on and still continue to do things. But now it gives them way more control over you.
And this
because
passed.
This passed. Governor Cox was so excited to protect the teens in Utah from social media use. You know, we're more concerned about protecting the teens from social media use than we are
Don't
about
hurt everybody.
pornography or something.
You know, this happened 2 years ago. You know, in when I'd send out our group email, I would put in there Sisters of Liberty, and they would shut me down
Yeah.
for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I just started putting SOL because
So-
that certainly doesn't look like Sisters of Liberty. And I've never been shut down since.
But again, if they start to track who you are,
Then
figure
they'll
that
track
out,
you.
Yeah.
they have way more power now over these things to
Yeah, now
control
they
it
have
because
to-
everything's verified at this point.
Who sponsored this bill?
So this one is sponsored by Mikkel.
Is he a Democrat?
No,
Oh my God.
this is actually, to my knowledge, he's Governor Cox's brother-in-law. So his wife is Governor Cox's
They're
sister.
really
Yeah, the
Democrats.
millennium coming.
I love the meme that, Romney's a trans Republican.
Anything with
They're
Cal
not
signs, it
Republicans.
should just be.
But again, this was highly supported by an incredible number of Republicans in Utah.
Then they had the
Sounds
sound.
It sounds good.
The
That's
sound.
right.
People are
We're
lazy, they
protecting
don't wanna
children,
read the
right?
details, yeah.
We're protecting children.
That's true.
And so again, to me, this is, and the other thing that was super telling about this, social media companies didn't put up a fight.
Because they knew they were gonna get money and knew they were gonna get data.
Gives them incredible amount of power, incredible amount of data, where now they can track everything back to me. Every account's
And
gonna
they
be
can
verified.
force you to pay.
And they
for
can force
the
you to pay,
additional-
yeah.
or whatever.
Or get
Everything's
your
gonna be
account shut
verified
down.
now, as coming from me. And again, we could be kind of anonymous as to the companies. We can still be anonymous online, but not to the companies anymore.
So according to this bill, just as I'm understanding correctly, they have to verify the age of the kid.
Age of
But they-
every user.
Every user.
Oh, every user.
Only
bill
in
mandates
Utah.
the age of
How
every
are they
user
gonna
in
do this
Utah.
in other states?
But can I just clarify?
They're not
that?
doing it in other
But
states
they
right now.
need to- the company, the social media platform gets to choose how they identify
Mhm.
their age. So one.
But if
might
they're
say
wrong,
you have
they
to
get
show social security number, or someone might say you have to show a driver's license.
Yep.
Or a birth certificate if they're under 18.
Yep,
And you have to comply to that in order to use the social media platform.
correct.
And that has to be implemented by 2024. Is that?
March 1st, I believe, 2024.
Wow.
So can we say we live in New York and then they won't check? We change
Well,
our address?
You can try, say I moved to New York, but your IP address is still pretty known to these people.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
And if you're logging in from Utah, and suddenly everyone's address in Utah changes to New York.
So then you do a VPN?
And again, some of these things, you may be able to try and circumvent some of it for a time, and just say, oh, location, US, or I don't know what you do. But there may be some ways to try and do it, but this is certainly, I think, going to spread across the nation. Because again, the biggest thing to me at first, when I looked at it, my first response was the social media companies are going to be all over this. This is such a nightmare for them. And then it was just crickets in the legislature, just nothing from them. And I was going, wait a minute. And then I started thinking about it, and I went, holy cow, this is an incredible amount of power coming to them when they can verify every user account.
So even if we don't do Gmail, if we did Yahoo or another one, they're still gonna have the same thing, right?
If they're considered a social media company. So you can, for example, something like Rocket Mail is probably not considered a social media company. Sorry, not Rocket Mail. what's the one I'm thinking of? The there's one you can pay for that's an encrypted one. Anyways,
Please, we need that information.
Proton Mail. Thank you.
Please, can you say that again?
Proton Mail.
But you
How
have
do
to
you
pay
spell
back.
it?
Proton Mail you pay for.
Well, you do it free. I have
ROTONMAIL.
Proton Mail. You could do it free, but you don't get much. They'll do it for free. I did it for 2 years for free.
Okay.
And then my storage added up, and so I had to pay now.
Yeah.
But I've been using that one for a couple of years.
But again, this is part of the discussion. So at the beginning, we put up the price of freedom. We may need to pay for services, right? So this doesn't apply to just any email company, technically. It's if there's social media attached to it.
So how is
They have to do
Gmail
that.
associated with social media?
So Gmail
What do
has
they
YouTube.
You don't get a lot of emails.
Oh,
And YouTube's
I
considered
thought
social
YouTube
media.
is Facebook.
No. YouTube is Google.
Oh, okay.
YouTube's Google.
Do you know the irony is, the first people who are gonna find a loophole will be the kids.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. The kids are going to know exactly how
Yeah,
to
right,
do
because
it.
kids are right, because.
The other
kids know
thing
so
about
much
this
more
is social media companies are defined to be a company of a certain size. So if they're under a certain number of users, they don't have to do this. So basically, any smart entrepreneur right now is going to go create a kid's social media site that just stays under that, that number threshold.
Who owns
Well,
Facebook?
there's nobody else on there, that's why.
Facebook is technically a public
Meta.
company,
No.
so it's owned by the public.
I see, okay.
Didn't Mikkel sponsor the flag thing too?
We can look. Mikkel sponsored quite a few things.
But who-
You will see common faces. If you actually go back through this, there's a lot of similar faces
Common faces that are.
and things here.
Can we look at their bank accounts? Is there a bill for that?
Those are in
Right,
Switzerland.
just pass that one.
They aren't here in
If
Utah.
we have to be vulnerable, so do they.
Just for your
Yeah.
FYI, I really like Governor of South Dakota, so I went and I listened to her State of the State address, and it was so well done. So then I went to Cox and listened to his State of the State, and he actually criticized older people. He talked to the youth, and he was totally opposite. And I challenge you all, go listen to hers and go listen to him.
For sure.
What was that? Which state was
Christy
that?
knows.
Dakota.
Christy Nome.
South Dakota?
Yeah,
South Dakota.
and then Cox.
He was derogatory to the people working.
No, Cox is awful.
He's he, him, remember. He is just for those youth. He, him.
He's a Democrat.
So now this one.
Republican.
So this bill now is going to lead
Yeah.
into
Okay,
He's a
a
right.
little bit more of our discussion
House
about
Bill 215.
private membership associations.
That what?
We're going to talk about private membership associations.
Okay.
This bill is going to lead
Okay,
into
Joyce.
it to kind of explain what's happening and why these private membership associations may be more necessary. So we have this bill.
Before you go into that, because you're gonna talk about why it protects and stuff, but why wouldn't the government just outlaw, just not regard the law like they're doing now?
Yeah, and we'll get into that
Okay.
with it. The government has some conundrums where it has to pick its battles with things. So this one, how many of you heard of the Utah Fits All Bill, Utah Hope Scholarship, school choice?
Yeah.
School choice, yes.
School choice.
Okay, so it's had a lot of different names. It's tried different marketing
And what
things.
was the name of it now?
So Fits All, Utah Fits All is what the school choice bill is called.
Okay.
And so they
I was
created
against it.
You what?
I was against
What?
it.
Why?
Yes.
And so we're going to
Change
talk
my
about it.
freedom.
I was
Okay.
personally very against it too,
Oh.
and I'll explain why. So, and this is one where I had direct conversations with people very close to this about saying, "Hey, here's the issues, here's the concerns," and the reason this was passed, this optional education opportunities, were that supposedly the legislature is frustrated with some of the public school systems. They want to clean them up, and they feel the best way to do that is the capitalist model of creating competition. They say if we have competition with our public schools, they'll be forced to clean up and get better. But since public school is a constitutional right in Utah and the government funds it and all those things, creating competition to, kind of compete against government funding is very difficult, right? So the theory is with school choice, and it's a theory touted, and even if you go on to Prager University, they have a bill that really promotes school choice. They said it's incredible, it's a great thing, we should do it. So this is something that's divided the conservative realm quite a bit as to whether it's good or bad.
It's bad.
And again, I want to be fully fair and transparent. There are arguments for it, cleaning up schools, competition, that type of thing. I will focus more on my concerns with it, as well as how that ties into a bigger picture that I see. So Utah Fits All says, we're going to give, if you homeschool, if you go to private school, you can get up to basically $8,000 per kid per year from the government.
From the state of Utah.
From the state of Utah. That says, so for example, I have 8 children. I've got 6, 7 of them in school age. And so I'm sitting where I could get something like $48,000, somewhere around there.
Okay, so people are gonna pull their kids
To
out of
homeschool.
school, do nothing with them and get the money.
Well,
So-
so the money doesn't go directly to the parent.
Oh, okay.
You have to spend it on something and, get reimbursed, or it pays it directly. Most of it they want to pay directly. So for example, I can now go sign my kids up for karate and soccer, and it will pay that expense. And again, they're saying, oh, this frees people. It's going to take them out of public school. And it's supposedly tied to the fact it costs that the school saves $9,500 if your kid's not there. And so they're trying to say, we'll give you the money you save the public school system to educate your kids elsewhere.
And the public schools were really against this as well.
Public schools are very against it. So notice
Yeah.
there's two
Well, 'cause
things
their
in
overhead doesn't go
the
away.
title. There's funding for teacher salaries and optional education opportunities.
So I did this in California. They gave me, I homeschooled. My oldest is 28 now, but I homeschooled, started at kindergarten. And they gave me $1,200 per child per semester. But you had to jump every single hoop that the government told you to do. So I couldn't choose Saxon math because it was Christian based.
Yep.
I couldn't choose,
Oh.
yeah, I mean, and then, I had to,
So it wasn't
every
real
month
Christians.
have a copy of, my health, just, anyway, it just was a lot of hoops to jump through, and I went, I don't wanna be monitored like this, I don't want them to test. I was a high school teacher, so I
So
didn't.
currently in Utah,
Yeah,
all those
so-
concerns came up and they
Yeah.
said, guess what? We'll let you do religious stuff.
Mhm.
Guess what? We won't require you to test. And the bill is actually pretty strong. It says a bunch of things. You can't force people to test as a result of this. You can't force them not to do religious curriculum. No, it puts in a bunch of safeguards. And so the bill
That's
sponsor
good
said,
because the testing is a big racket in itself.
well, again, so this is part of understanding the big picture legislatively. People often ask me to say, well, how protective are those protections? Do they really protect me? Do they not? And I said, well, while they're there, they're very protective. But all it takes is the last 3 days of a session to change that in a heartbeat. There's nothing that, even though it says you can't do this and this is a right and whatever, I said it's a statutory right, which means it can be changed. If it's not in the Constitution, it can just be changed. So even if they say, we promise never to change this, they can change it any time because it's not in the Constitution.
That's like the health bill to get the opt-out of vaccines here.
Mhm.
I mean, at the last second, they changed where they, didn't put in this, true consent, understanding both sides.
Yeah, things can change very quickly. So again, if it does change, currently there are protections. If you take it, currently you can use it for almost anything you want that they approve. And now there's a couple other weird things with this bill. They have a nonprofit they select that gets paid a % of what it divvies out to people for administration. It chooses kind of, what's approved, what's not approved kind of thing. I don't love at all this nonprofit in the middle making a bunch of money from this. But
Isn't that
A
IHC, the
nonprofit with a lot of
nonprofit?
profit.
Are they the ones paying off the teachers, and that's how they were able to force this through?
no, so what happened here is
Yeah.
to get this through with the teachers, they increased teacher funding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did.
And so they said, we're going to do
Which
two
they needed to
things.
do anyway.
They said, we're going to raise teacher wages, so you get a bonus every teacher, and a permanent increase, so don't be too upset, and we're going to fund this. Now in Utah, there is we just have this little constitutional provision in Utah. This is the Utah Constitution, Article 6, Section 22. It says, no bill shall be passed containing more than one subject, which shall be clearly expressed in its title. There were actually reps up there that said, this is 2 subjects, guys. We need to split these bills apart. And the Utah legislature said, no way, if we split it apart, they die. We're not splitting it apart. It's got to stay together. And so they argue, the argument is that the legislative side, that the subject, they say it's one subject. They go, it's one subject, Austin. Because they say it's funding. Funding's the subject.
No, nice try, huh?
And,
It's two.
and I'm going, well, you read any news article, it's pretty clear this is two subjects.
Yeah.
So we have this,
And in it. Isn't that a word that says two things?
And?
This and that.
well, so for example, let's say that you funded teacher salary increases and teacher bonuses. That would probably classify as one subject.
Yeah, because they're teachers.
Because there's a connection between the two, right?
Compensation for teachers, yeah.
So if you're funding increased salary and increased retirement or something, the Supreme Court's probably going to let that fly, I think. So there are bills that contain ands that do pass muster. But to me, it was a big stretch to say that these are the two same subjects. So my personal opinion is this bill violates the Utah Constitution. And it's something, if anyone wants to sue on it, you know, I think it's a pretty ripe constitutional challenge, but it's one where it's painful for an individual because then you're the poster child that took away all the money for everybody, right?
No.
Teachers and all the students.
Are my public school taxes gonna go up because of that?
They claim it's not going to.
That's my right, like, no.
So the theory is that they're paying $9,500 to the school, and if you move your kid to another school, they just transfer the funding over with the $8,000.
And what if I don't have any kids in public school anymore?
Then for those people, it might go up a little bit. But again, the theory is we're going to move to get kids out of school. It's not going to change.
Well, I'd be a part of that class action, because if my taxes go up because of this, then I have an invested interest in it.
Yeah, well, I think everyone has a vested
Everyone
interest.
does, yeah.
Everyone does.
So,
Your taxes are going up no matter what.
so we have
I'm
this.
gonna pick it apart.
We have this happening, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this in context of PMAs. We're going to try and go a little bit faster because we're getting towards the end.
That's
But
okay.
there's this scripture that we're going to talk about from the perspective of something that's always fascinated me, that took me a long time, I think, to understand what was happening here. This talks about the mark of the beast, and it says, you know, in the end, everyone has to get this mark. And then it says, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Now, I always looked at this and just said, why didn't they just force everyone to get it? Why is it that you can't buy or sell? Why didn't they just say, you have to get the mark? That's always been one of my questions, because I personally believe this is a literal prophecy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't take it as symbolic. I personally believe it's literal. And so with that I say, I'm not going to be able to buy or sell. Why are they choosing that mechanism as opposed to the mechanism of just mandating it by law? Saying you have to do it. You guys have any thoughts on that?
You'd have revolution.
Okay, you may have a revolution, but if people can't eat, why wouldn't you have a revolution?
What I think is so evil about this is that it isn't that about buying and selling. Is you have to sign something denying Christ when you sign up for this. So it's a choice
So
between
potentially-
Christ and Satan.
Potentially.
And this is by the Antichrist. I'm studying all this stuff. The Antichrist is the one saying this.
But we're just, so for the moment, we're just trying to focus on why are they choosing the mechanism if you can't buy or sell? Why didn't they just pass a new law that says you have to do it?
Good question. Well, they want voluntary compliance, and they're basing it on people's desire to own things and have things in their comfort zone, the natural man. That's just my perspective.
Okay, that's all true.
Because if you buy or sell, you do own something, and the whole idea is where we won't own anything, we'll be happy.
Yeah.
Okay, so that could be part of it, but there's actually something, if you think about the law of opposition, so this is something we talked about last time in the War in Heaven story. There's opposition in all things. And I actually believe there's an opposition that forces them into this model.
Oh.
Something good.
So that's your P
That we can choose out.
No, it's not. It's
No.
not. What's the good thing that makes it so they can't pass the law mandating we take on the mark of the beast?
We can move to.
The Constitution.
Oh, well, yeah.
I actually believe this is a prophecy that the Constitution stands.
Oh, okay.
They can't force us to take on the mark of the beast because the Constitution stands. Is my
I see it, yeah.
Also, in just one verse, and Farrell Pickering talks about this, a treaty with 10 nations happens at the halfway point in our tribulations, where the Antichrist comes, I'll solve all this turbulence in the world. 10 nations sign to agree to this, but America as a nation does not. Which is why we
can't.
get
We have
the
a constitution.
exactly, and because then we get the Antichrist torturing us for the last half of our 7 years of tribulation, and then he double crosses Israel, who had signed it, and goes over and starts Armageddon. Now that's Farrell's interpretation of that scripture, but it does make a certain amount of sense.
Yeah, and it's certainly, you know, again, on me personally, I love talking about possibilities with things. The actual mechanism that comes down, I still am super open-minded to, is what exactly is happening, you know, where is it at? But when I look at this, I say, they can't mandate that we do this here because we have a constitution. I believe this is actually a prophecy about the U.S. Constitution.
That's cool.
And its staying power.
I love that.
Where they now have to say, we're going to try and starve you out. You can't buy or sell.
Right.
Because we can't mandate it. The Constitution survives. And I think that should give us encouragement that we need to really dig in and say, we're going to keep the Constitution alive. Because it's what forces us to this realm where they have to now say, guess what? You don't get Facebook.
Correct.
Guess what? You don't get Gmail. Guess what? You may now not have access to currency. And so this gets into then the question of, with the war in heaven,
Put in different currency.
what is the price of freedom? What is the price of freedom becoming in the currency of fighting for freedom? The price of freedom is becoming, what are we willing to sacrifice to keep our freedoms? When it comes time to it, if we go to say what's happening, this was actually prophesied by a justice, a chief justice on the Supreme Court. So prior to, so we had a situation in America where they tried to pass a federal income tax. And think about from a big picture perspective what federal income tax is. It was actually banned constitutionally. Founders were opposed to it. And so they had to pass a constitutional amendment.
Yeah.
1913, they come and say, guess what? We want to do an income tax
To pay for the war.
to pay for things. And all the states say, we'll do a constitutional amendment. We'll pass this. Allow the federal government to tax us. Now what happens when the federal government now has power to take money from the people in the states? Takes the money and then it says, we're not allowed to regulate education. Constitution doesn't allow it. Courts didn't allow it. So what if we just give you money? You don't have to take it. We'll take the money from you through income tax. And now we'll offer to give it back if you follow our regulations.
Yeah, that's what happened.
And so
Common
this case
core.
actually was challenged.
Common core.
This action was challenged. And they said it's unconstitutional. They said it's a circumvention of the Constitution. You can't give money back with strings attached. The Supreme Court said, you can, because they don't have to take it. It's not a law. It's not a mandate.
Right.
So it's this buy or sell thing. You don't have to do it, so they can do whatever they want if they're paying for it and buying it from you. So Justice Butler dissented, and he said the provisions in question that allowed the government to give money back with strings attached, if not amounting to coercion in a legal sense, are manifestly designed and intended directly to affect state action in the respects specified. So he's saying they're designed to control the state, guys. That's what they're doing. And he says, and if valid is so employed, this tax and credit device may be made effective to enable federal authorities to induce, if not indeed to compel, state enactments for any purpose within the realm of state power, and generally to control state administration of state laws.
Exactly.
So 1937, he sees it. It's like, whoa, guys, this just blows apart the whole Constitution. It's a circumvention of it. And he says, I'm not for it. Don't do it. He only saw it, though, go as far as controlling the states, right? So what now happens with things like the Utah Fits-All bill, when money's being handed to individuals, is we're now opening up homeschooling, private schooling, all realms that the government hasn't been able to touch, to
Do it.
government
Start
regulation.
In California.
Yep, government
Start,
regulation.
now we'll test your
And-
this and that, yeah.
And what happens is,
Yeah, it's interesting.
it's actually more concerning to me that we don't have all these things about testing in place. So for example, if it just said if you take this money you have to test, a lot of people wouldn't do it. But they say take this money, you don't have to test today. And what happens is that we then become reliant on it. What happens to all the price of public schools?
Exactly.
They go up by $8,000 a year, right? All the costs go up. Homeschooling, my daughter's in Wasatch Independent Debate League. It's an awesome league. They charge a certain amount per year. But as things like the My Tech High money came into homeschooling, prices went up.
Yep.
People had more money.
Yep.
When all this money comes in, this is going to go up. So if we don't take the money as a family, we're going to be priced out of almost access to everything, right? It's going to start to happen. So they create this economy that kind of squeezes everyone into, well, how do you tell your kids they can't go do sports and dance and all the cool, fun things that every other homeschooling kid's doing because you don't want to take the government funds? Because there's no strings attached, guys. You take it, you become reliant on it, and then suddenly you're faced with, when those regulations start to come, are you going to take that away from your kids? Are you going to tell your kids, nope, we're not going to do that? Because it won't be all at once. You know, it'll be piece by piece to where you can't by yourself.
That's exactly what happened.
And just to give an idea that this isn't just a hypothetical what if, this is actual text from the bill. So this is the Utah Fits All bill. I highlighted 4 provisions. It appears in there 4 times. You can see the line numbers. Line number 823, 859, 871, 912. If you take money, so to be an eligible service provider, a private program or service, so again, private program or service, shall comply with the anti-discrimination provisions of 42 U.S.C. Section 2000D.
That's so powerful.
So what have we done now? We've just created a mechanism in Utah that has now tied the individual in homeschool and private school to the state level and to the federal level. Direct regulation that can flow down. The feds can amend anything they want in this 42 U.S.C. Section 2000D, and instantly it's applicable at every level in Utah.
If you take the money.
Yep.
So awful.
If you don't take the money though, then you're okay?
Yes, if you can survive in the economy where everyone else is taking the money.
Yeah, so like, my daughter right now is at Leona Preparatory Academy, and it's probably gonna go up.
So
the
what?
price.
But what private school can stay in business if
Yeah,
everyone else has the money?
yeah.
If you say, oh, we're not, because what they're doing is they're not giving the money to the parent directly to then use. And so they're saying to the school, if your student wants to pay with this money, you then have to comply with this.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so then you're stuck as a school saying, sorry guys, you can't come here because I can't accept those funds.
Yeah. And then they raise your taxes as well.
Yeah, and again, tax raises will come. They say no, but it will come. But 4 times in the bill, they say, shall comply with the anti-discrimination provisions of 42 U.S.C. Section 2000D. Why in the world as a state would we even put that in there?
Right.
Yeah, why would
It shows you how many people sold us out of our own.
And so this is something I think to be very aware of. But again, it comes back to this thing of, so what's the price of freedom? Now the price of freedom is I have to tell my kids, you don't get what the rest of the world has, guys. We're going to live poor comparatively to everyone else. There's a lavish lifestyle. There's riches available. And we have to choose to not partake, right? Painful situation to put kids in. And you look at the mark of the beast and how clever it is. Again, this is because the Constitution stands. I believe it stands. They've given up trying to destroy the Constitution in the sense of getting past everything.
Yeah, as they should.
They're circumventing it through buying our freedoms from us.
Well, and two, with the COVID relief money that was sent out, if you pay your taxes digitally, it was put in your bank account whether you wanted it
Yep,
or not.
didn't have a choice,
And
right?
then you try to return it, and how do you return it, right?
Yeah.
Oh wait, I didn't have a choice in having received it, I just was given it. And I've been given it, where's the list of laundry, like this is, that says because you received it, now you're liable to all this.
Yeah.
We never got any of that as a people.
No, it wasn't
But we
sent to you,
were
right? It wasn't
fine.
sent all the fine print associated with it.
Well, to me, it seems like people have wanted the vouchers, and they've, okay, fine, we'll give it to you. Now you're gonna comply. It's almost like this punishment, that you asked for it enough and we don't wanna do it, so if you're gonna do this, now we win.
Yeah, and so but again, it's to understand what's happening.
Do you
The
know
power
what
play
that
becoming
is? Do you
buying
know
our freedoms.
what that provision 42 really entails?
Yeah.
Is it until health stuff? It's
No,
like,
not currently.
Not currently, because
Currently, it's mostly race and national origin based.
So is it CRT training and stuff like that?
It could.
it could
that
do
could
that.
become
and
part of it quickly.
It could be like our school, that they do debate and they travel. Then would they have to room together with same sex stuff.
But the
like
federal
that.
government could easily add in sexual orientation to this. Could easily add in all kinds of things that it wants to
Yeah,
this.
'cause
Well,
so
that's how
during
they
the
work,
door
too.
is
They
now
keep
open.
adding things
Again,
to it.
there's now a direct tie where we've said as a state, direct tie. The feds can now control what happens in
And
our
does our
schools
governor
and schools.
understand this? Do you think
I'm
he's?
sure he
I'm
does.
sure he does, and I think he's all on board with it.
These were fights I had directly with people, guys.
Yeah.
This is what I was pretty vocal on.
So Leahona, the private school, Leahona Preparatory Academy, I was able to just talk to the principal about freedom and liberty, and he gave us freedom to not mask or unmask, and and so if
But at risk to himself
at risk to himself, but
and his institution.
well, he's a private school.
Well, Kimber Academy is doing good work that way too.
But again, so this
How do we
we'll
protect
actually,
it?
we'll
So
actually
now
look at
you're
this
gonna
real quick.
do how to
Yep.
protect
So we're going
it?
to talk about some of the potential protections.
Thank you.
So this is just a scripture. Since you brought up the Book of Mormon, it's good to talk
49.
about. Captain Moroni sat in a time when he watched the Malachi run away to the Lamanites, and he goes, "I know the guy's coming back." So what did he do? Instead of sitting saying, "Oh, woe is me, something bad's going to happen," he said, "Let's go prepare for it, right? Let's build something. Let's create something." And so believe, if you look at believe, our logo, we feel strongly that our calling in life isn't to sit and say, "Woe is me, oh, something bad's going to happen." It's to prepare, build something, right? Let's not just sit around. Let's actually build something, create something that can serve as a fortification, and that can serve as a solution. All these different things. So, as you look at the Believe logo, there are two hidden messages in it. One's pretty
my.
easy.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
I believe is the first hidden message. There's a second one in there. So if you find it,
I-E.
Well, there's the word lion,
Lion.
L-I-E.
yeah, it's not with the actual.
Okay.
It's a different message that is
Okay.
a symbol in there. So keep looking.
eye?
The light
as you go through
is
that.
around the eye.
Yeah.
There is light around the eyes to
shape
help
of
you
the
find
eyes.
the
Oh,
symbol.
yeah.
Balance.
On the
Good
On your
Lie,
knees, pray.
L-I-E.
Praying.
Pray,
The eyes praying.
pray. Yeah.
Oh.
What is
Pray.
it?
He's praying.
I am praying.
Mhm.
Is what we
He's
what we
praying.
have.
Yeah.
I don't
So-
see praying.
He's on his knees. I is.
The eye.
Oh. Now I
Okay.
see it.
I'm a symbols person.
That's
I see
beautiful.
symbols.
Yeah, so we had that in there. And if you want, I did bring wristbands today with I believe wristbands.
Oh, awesome.
You can take a wristband. We try to get people to believe. But it's once you see the praying person, you can't unsee the praying person.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we like to hide that in there so that people see that.
That's awesome.
So this is something that, again, some good news that came from our courts. California had extreme COVID measures, right?
Yeah.
back one?
Yep.
Let me take a picture of that.
Oh, yeah.
California had extreme COVID measures, and they passed a rule or law that said nobody can meet together in person for school.
Yeah.
So they said no kids can meet together in person for school. The law was challenged in court, and there were public schoolers that sued, and there were private schoolers that sued. And it was fascinating to see how it fared in California, in the Ninth Circuit, one of the most liberal circuits in the nation. They came and they said, "Oh, look at this." They said, as it relates to, they said, "We hold that the district court properly rejected the substantive due process claims of those plaintiffs who challenged California's decision to temporarily provide public education." And so they said, as it relates to public education, government can do whatever it wants. They can ban it, they can force it into online learning. But then the next page of the decision says, "We reach a different conclusion, however, into the state's interference in the in-person provision of private education. California's forced closure of their private schools implicates a right that has long been considered fundamental under the applicable case law. The right of parents to control their children's education and to choose their children's educational forum."
So they have
So
to-
private schools, they said, government, you can't shut down a private school, even for COVID.
That's
Pretty
awesome.
fascinating
That is
That
amazing
is.
to pass.
That's
to have the
encouraging.
Ninth Circuit say that and agree that, yeah, you can't touch a private school, guys, even with COVID. And so that brings us to the place of these, what they call private member associations, where a private school is a private member association just by nature. And a private member association, the way to think about it, is a group of people who aren't open to the public. They only limit admittance to those that have their same values, their same beliefs, whatever. And in a private scenario, the government doesn't have as much control of you because the Constitution has a right to association. And so, to give an example of how this has played out in the past, We had prohibition come about with alcohol, and then we repealed prohibition. But when prohibition was repealed, a lot of states and counties still chose to ban alcohol, even though it wasn't banned across the nation. In those situations, people would get together in a group like this, they'd make some alcohol, and all drink it, right? And the law would come in and say, hey, you can't do that, this is a dry county. And you say, but we're a private group. You can't touch us, you only have the power to regulate public transactions. And probably because judges love alcohol, not all of them, but some of them, they said, yeah, it's a private group. Law, you don't have the power to tell these people what they do in private. And so in Utah, till about 2007, 2009-ish, if you wanted to buy alcohol at a restaurant, you had to join their private club.
Yeah.
You had to become a member, pay a due. And it was this weird quirk. Everyone was so upset with it for the Olympics that I have this weird quirk. I've got to pay $25 at a restaurant to join their club. But it was because they said Utah didn't have the constitutional authority to ban private sales of alcohol. Now, if you read about PMAs or private member associations online, there are people that say that they get you out of any government regulation. It's not true. They don't go that far. Because there's private things the government can regulate, but there's private things they can't. And that the courts haven't allowed them to. And so to Nancy's question about, well, why doesn't the law just pass things on it and regulate it? The thing to remember about any type of power that be evil or dark, evil needs a way to operate, right? One of the main ways it operates is through private groups, private contracts, private agreements, trusts, things like that are all private. If the government were to shut down the ability for people to have private contracts and private associations, it's shutting down the power of a lot of the evil groups as well. They'll never let that go. They don't believe that individuals like us are going to unite together and create a private association that can withstand not being able to buy or sell.
I'll send you this picture.
Once that fully comes into place. But I believe that's almost a predicate to what Zion is it's a group of people who've chosen to say, we're private, we have a belief system, and we're choosing to follow that and live that. And so when we look at Zion arising in the last days, to me the prophecy of Zion is it's created before Jesus comes. Jesus comes to it. It's a glorious place. It's not a bad place. I don't believe in Zion we're sitting there starving or just not having technology. Zion is great and terrible. People are afraid of it. And I look at that and I say, we often get concerned about, well, holy cow, we see all this stuff coming in. We see that, we should have accounts, one by one. This process is starting. And so I look at it like Captain Moroni, where he watches the Malachi run and goes, it's coming, right? It's coming. We know it's coming. So what are we going to do about it? Just sit and wait until we have the decision to give up and walk away from our home and everything else because we don't have anything? Or are we going to build something and start to work towards a community that supports each other and does things privately? And so PMAs generally are, you have a contract, everyone agrees via contract about the code of conduct, what goes on and how to support each other. But you can have private exchanges in those. The government, for example, can't. How do they stop my ability to give you food that I grew and your ability to give me something that you did? And that's a very basic notion, basic model. But one of the things I feel we need to start doing for the price of freedom is we need to start supporting each other in local communities and groups. We need to start building the culture. And we talked a little bit before I started with one about how we're a ways away from being able to do it completely, right? But we can start walking. To me, it's like a bridge. We can enter into a private membership association with someone. We can start walking, understanding that there will be some setbacks. We're not going to be able to do everything in it without some government regulation. But there are some things that they're not going to be able to touch. Education is one of them. If we keep government money out of our education and we create a private community that stays that way, they can't touch it constitutionally. And I think that prophecy in John is a prophecy that this Constitution stays. They can't touch it. They can't take that from us.
They're trying to.
And again, they're going to try and buy it from us now.
People
Satan's
are going to be tempted. Oh, look at
Satan's
that.
belief is that he can buy anything with money, right? Even our freedoms. And then the question is, how much do we value our freedoms? Do we sell them out for $8,000 a year? Do we sell them out for whatever? Do we sell them out for a nice home? What is our price, our selling point? He believes all of us have a selling point. And to be honest, if it comes down to us just starving in the street, my kid's starving in the street, that's tough. It's tough to watch a kid starve in the street if that's where you've gone. But if we're, like Moroni, a little more forward-minded and say, but we don't have to get there. I don't believe that's God's way. I believe there are ways to say, let's build something. Let's just start walking that walk to start to support each other in things in this. And so this is something we push extensively and believe is to say, you have power to literally stop the Constitution from being taken by simply the way you live.
So is the
Those you
league
support.
hooked up with Helen Robson's group? That's the first time I heard about private member associations. Is
Well,
the-
you wrote those up.
I don't know Helen.
Oh, you don't know Helen?
Or maybe I do know
Okay.
Helen.
Robson.
Maybe I just don't know her last
Robson.
name. Is she with the People Restored?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, so the People Restored we are connected with.
Oh, good, okay.
And so Believe First, the law firm, I've agreed to be a member of the People Restored
Oh, that's amazing.
Private Membership Association.
Okay.
But that is one that I still need to pay my dues. So.
This sounds like the majesty of God's law. If you read the last few chapters on, he talks about we are going to network together.
Yeah.
We won't have that many
It
systems.
won't
We
come
won't
to
have
the
this.
church,
We
is
will-
what David Omicay
We
said.
will be networking
And
together.
Ezra Chad Benson also said that the church isn't the vehicle to run this.
So how do we, I know when Helen called me and was explaining this to me, it was so new, like it is probably to many of you. How do we become part, or get our businesses and our money switched over to a private member association?
I brought flyers just because
And what happens if we can't buy and sell with money?
I know,
How
and I
do we pay our
have to take,
dues?
I have to go in a minute.
So dues can be paid in many ways. At the beginning, things will probably be somewhat money-based, but the People Restored, as an example of that group, they are making a currency with Goldbacks. They're associated with Goldbacks group,
The Alpine group that we had here.
where everything goes on gold.
Yeah.
And so they're starting to facilitate business transactions based on that. Because again, from the beginning, can I just take everything in Goldbacks? No. There's not enough businesses that accept it.
Right.
But can I agree to take 10% in Goldbacks and someone else agree to take 10%? Probably. And then we start that facilitation, we start to move. And then you can start to contribute things like labor, you can start to contribute services, you can start to contribute all kinds of things, because at the end of the day, a private community is just going to be one where you can say, hey, I'm the attorney, I'll draft your contracts, I'll do your things, and because I do my part, you do your part, and we all help each other. And it's a system of trust. It takes time to build it.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no way
Start
just to
now.
go from where we're at and just say, oh, we're there. The Saints tried that. To say, we'll go from here to this high system of trust where everyone contributes. It takes time. It takes building to get into. And so a group like the People Restored, their goal is to say, let's start to work together at a basic level. Get some individuals, get some businesses in, and just start to interact together. Let's start to walk the walk and see where it can
Austin
lead.
too. I mean, and his group, I just think all of them are good. And you also did the Health Independence Alliance. So for medical freedom, you did that. Isn't that a PMA too?
That one is a PMA.
What's the name of that again, Nancy? I didn't hear that.
Health
The
Independence
Health
Alliance.
Independence Alliance. They're the ones that did the documentary that Mike helped with.
Yeah, so the documentary on the COVID vaccine is done by the Health Independence Alliance. They're looking to be a PMA as
So
well.
they can refer your name too to this. I have had these for a long time, but
I didn't get one.
And so there are multiple ones, and it's not that you can only be a part of
But I'll
one.
take this one.
Any one of you can start one. You can do these things. You can start to say, we have like-minded people, we have concerns, we have things we want to do. But the goal is to say, let's be a little bit proactive, kind of like Moroni, and look to the future and say, what challenges are coming? And what can we build in a private network to account for those? And how do we start creating it? How do we start walking that walk? And that to me is the goal of where we're all at, is we're not going to win every battle with the legislature. We're not going to win
No.
everything.
Probably.
But again, I think we can take a lot of faith in the prophecy from John. Oh,
anybody else?
we can take comfort in the prophecy from John that they have to go the buy or sell route.
The what route?
The buy or sell. They can't go the force route because the Constitution doesn't permit it.
Okay. Because.
But then if they're going the buy or sell route,
Thank you.
and we want to still have things for our kids, food to eat and stuff, we need to be wise and say, so we need to build a community, right? To me, that's the only solution I've seen. There may be others,
Inspiration for it.
but I see that we need to build this community, and the
It's
law
like a
has strong
loophole.
protections.
Isn't it great?
Robin isn't here, but about a year or more ago, she sent out to, I think, all of us, a plan for people to get together and
The Liberty Republic.
The Liberty Health Share. Are you talking about for the?
No, Liberty Republic.
Oh, the Liberty Republic, yeah.
and whatever happens in there, but you have these trusted people in this community.
Yep.
It might be only 10 families or 5 families.
No, and there are a couple of PMAs that have grown quite large. So have you heard of Christian Health Shares?
Uh-huh.
Christian Health Shares,
Yeah.
some of them have 400,000 members.
Liberty Health Share.
Liberty Health,
I
Zion
had that
Health.
for a while.
Christian Ministries,
Mhm.
there's a number of them.
Your grandfather did.
But in their private sphere, they don't have to comply with all Obamacare regulations.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to provide access to abortion and contraceptives and things that violate certain religious freedoms. And they're a private group that can do things, but they are big. And so again, the health shares are neat because they've created a really cool system of sharing among people in a community that is starting to help people walk that walk, to say, I'm going into a different model, going to move into the private realm. And as people, we can start to create more and more private realms. And these private realms can start to associate together as well, staying private. But we can build solutions. And that's something that I strongly believe in.
Do you have a podcast that kind of teaches this so that we can kind of?
It's a great question. It's probably the most requested thing of me right now is that I put up something to teach about these, go through the cases.
That's gonna bring down the wrath of the.
So it's coming.
Yeah.
What is the name of your thing?
Believe Network.
It's
Yeah.
called Believe, okay.
So it's called Believe. It's at believe.ventures.
Just a minute.
Ventures with a V.
Oh.
Are
And
you on the
that's-
private servers that Vaughn and those guys are doing?
We are not yet.
Okay.
And so we have work to do to get things more private too.
Yeah.
Are you on meat thing that was in the cattle?
On which
And
thing?
the farmers in Utah?
Oh, the meat one?
Yeah.
I'm not directly a part of it, but I'm
That's
very,
People Restored.
very aware of a lot going on there. And so that's a neat thing. They're building food sources and stuff, communities there. And again, there's options. People are starting to understand this. They're starting to say, let's create things. And so my invite for you is choose a private member association to start to support, be a part of. I don't personally believe that every private member association will survive. But what it will do is you start the process. We learn things, what works, what doesn't. We start to walk the walk, talk the talk. We do it in a way that we don't put all our eggs in one basket. It's not just signing up for everything in today, but we can say, okay, health, I can move here, or food, I can move here, or different pieces. And we start to do that, and we start to build these solutions.
So your next meeting is Thursday, are you doing one this month?
Yeah, so Believe has a meeting tomorrow. We meet tomorrow at noon.
Where?
We meet in Orem. There's a doctor's office called Health and Vitality. And we meet there. And we go through, a lot of our work right now is just getting people to believe it's possible to start to pursue their own talents, their own callings in life, and then to support others who are doing these things. So as an attorney, I do support a lot of PMAs, help write those, draft those, do those types of things.
Can we come tomorrow?
Say, can you come tomorrow? Yep. There's lunch if you come. I don't know the address off the top of my head, but if you search Health and Vitality in Orem, it has the address. And it's in the basement. There's steps down on the outside there.
So Believe is a PMA, is that what you're saying?
It has that component to it. It has a PMA component.
And do you have to have a charter or anything? I mean, do you have to create a lawful charter or something?
Yeah, so a PMA does have to have a contract that people sign to be functioning. You're going to get the most protection in that situation. But again, I'm not necessarily pushing. My biggest thing is just to say, pick one that meets with where you're at and what you're pursuing in life. Because if we can start working with people, start building things,
That's critical.
they'll come and go, they'll change, but we're going to learn what we need to learn to then get to the next point on the bridge, and the next point on the bridge, and these will grow. So with that, we went a little bit over, sorry about that. If you want,
you're fine.
Let's
the difference
You-
between
you have
a PMC
precedence.
A private membership community, is that the same as a PMA?
So one of the reasons for, and these are wristbands if you want them. There's all kinds of colors. So feel free to take one. These are more medium sized. This is for a little bit larger wrists. But private membership association, community, club, it can have all kinds of different names. One of the things that's happened is that there are a few cases that have said, we're not going to uphold a PMA in this situation. And one's under health, where they pushed back and said the FDA has power to regulate even in a private membership association because the FDA laws expressly say they can regulate associations. So one of the things we're doing is to say, well, let's start calling private member communities, and because the FDA law doesn't give permission to regulate a community. And so it's just one of the things where we're changing some terminology, we're creating them a little bit differently to say...
Beat them at their own games, right?
Yeah, to say, well, let's see what we can do. Because honestly, if a law is going to say you can regulate a community, that's very difficult to say. Because communities is such a loose term. Can you regulate the church community? You know, can you do these different things?
A city.
And so communities are just so loose without bounds that it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. But the People Restored, I think, is under a private member community is what they're called at the moment. But yes, if you hear club, association, community, it's all under the same type of umbrella with that.
But you kind of already refined the process, and I've had friends ask if he could be the one to help them put together their communities too.
And I will be honest, there are some situations these just don't help at all. There's just some things that they don't help with. I try and be honest with people about that and say, it's not going to do anything for you. But there are situations where it does, and we start building with those, creating precedent, and that's the goal. And one of the fun things about the People Restored is they have plans to be actively involved in court to really push the rights of these private communities.
They're very active oriented.
Which is an important thing. We need to be in court over these. We have to be creating precedent. And so that is one thing that they're doing, which is helpful.
Is this Pam Openshaw's daughter?
No.
Robin Openshaw, the People Restored? No, it's not? Okay.
No, this is a group that would meet Wednesdays, and we'd go out and we would go to schools and say you can opt out of the government in the tests, ask your kids if you own guns and where they're kept in the home and a lot of stuff like that. I mean, they do an action every single week, and they have a speaker, and they're doing health and, you know,
Is it
schooling,
local or is it
education.
national?
It is local currently.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more.
And what's the fee?
It's $150 for household, $500 for a business. But then you get gold backs. I mean, it basically.
And that is for a year.
It does what?
And you also get gold backs for that 150?
I don't know if that's included or if you buy those extra.
Yeah,
I'd
just
have to-
get
that's just
some
I don't know.
to the
back.
company.
I'm not sure about the gold bag. Explain that. Is that?
It's that plastic money stuff that's got gold in it.
Well,
So
Oh, it's
goldback
local.
is, when
I
you get
own
a
some.
goldback, they have a currency with it, but every one of those is tied to actual gold. So there's a gold standard that's
It actually
associated.
has gold in
But
it,
they
that
have
much
gold
gold.
in them.
And they do, and
It's
their
a
little currency has
minute
some-
amount.
Yeah,
little
it's a
bit of gold
token
in it.
and something.
the gold bag.
But essentially, if people start adopting them, we could use them as exchange for services and products and things, if there's
If it
enough
doesn't
people in the
go past
community to do
people.
that.
Are gold backs connected to Utah being on the gold standard?
To Utah being on the gold standard?
Yeah, you
Well,
can.
yes,
Is it,
because-
is it?
I'm honestly not sure what Utah being on the gold standard is.
So you're supposed to be, in Utah, you're supposed to be able to go in and buy anything using gold
Yes.
and.
Gold and silver. We are on the gold and silver standard in
Yeah,
Utah.
in Utah. And so is this why that the gold backs
Yes.
work so well?
Yes.
Yes.
No. So to understand, states don't have the power to say that anything but gold and silver is valid payment for money.
No,
Under the
they're not
Constitution.
saying that. They're just saying that.
But it's to
Businesses
say
can
that the
accept.
feds came out and kind of superseded that. So the state stuff, anything the state says really doesn't matter because of what the feds have done. And the Constitution banned the states from doing certain things with currency. Goldbacks are a private system where it's just saying to someone, if you accept this note, I can promise you that I have a vault here. So these people actually have a vault that houses all the gold. It says there's gold associated with it. It's a private system. It's nothing to do with the state of Utah. And it's our choice what we take. I can choose to take gold in exchange for services. I can choose to take wristbands. I can choose to take food. I can choose to take whatever. If you want to pay me in something, offer it. We'll see if I need it or not, right? But gold backs, the theory is, if we do it in a private community, we're creating our own system of money in exchange that is completely independent of whatever these powers that do that say you can't buy or sell. And so the gold backs is someone that said, I want to create a private system because they see this and they're going, we don't want to be part of this, we need something, another solution. And the notes they create facilitate trade between people.
They actually have gold in them though, of that.
Yeah, and there's a little
There
bit
is.
woven in there. And they're really cool looking.
So Utah, there was a guy that came here, said that Utah is on the gold standard. Is that not true? UMPA, I think it
So
was.
it's the thing to understand is every state's technically on the gold standard pursuant to the Constitution. But that doesn't mean anything for a state because the feds superseded that
When? When was that?
with the currency that they've issued. When the feds departed from the gold standard.
Under Nixon, right?
Well, what was, so what was
And the
this
states
guy?
aren't allowed
Because
to
people are
issue
idiots.
their own
Oh,
currency
yeah.
under
They're
the
dreamers.
Constitution.
Yeah, no, but there, I think there was a law that
I trust them more.
acknowledged that it was okay that businesses and it could be public.
Could be paid with
exchanged
gold.
Yeah, and again,
with those that wanted to.
correct. And again, the thing to understand about that though is it's different to say Utah's on the gold standard versus Utah permits you to choose whatever you want for payment. Because currently, I can choose whatever I want for payment. You can pay me in a cow, you can pay me in a couch, you can pay me in a chair. I can choose whatever.
Cookies.
There's no law that has to say, oh, Austin, you can only accept payment in certain things. Because one of the private rights I have under the Constitution is just, I agreed to it. What are you going to do about it, Judge? I agreed that I would do this for that. And so that's the standard that gold's really operating under, is that constitutional right of association and to choose. And again, states can say, oh, we recognize the right to pay in gold. But that's really not impacting your constitutional right to do anything with it. It certainly helps if the state hasn't banned it, if the state bans it, but I don't even think they have the power constitutionally to ban it. Constitution says they have to, gold and silver is the legal tender kind of thing, so I don't think they have the constitutional power to ban gold. But it is nice to hear people will say in their selling points, oh, it's backed by Utah standard. But I just want to clarify that it's not necessarily you have express legal permission for it, not express prohibition against it. It's just up to us privately what we choose to do and not do. And so these communities want to say, if we can make gold backs the standard, where businesses start to exchange in that, and over time get it to where there's enough exchange happening, enough businesses involved, that you can now just truly accept gold backs. You don't have to worry about PayPal, you don't have to worry about Venmo, you don't have to worry about Facebook, you just have your own system.
Well, that's what the People Restored had. They have, I think, 500 businesses already that are willing to do this exchange.
Yeah, and so that's a neat thing, right? So if we can be part of that, help build it, some cool things happen. And then just the last thing, just real quick. Last time we talked with the book, and a lot of people like to listen to them. We finally got it done, audio-wise. So if you want to listen to The War in Heaven.
You want to just hold the book up?
That is on the Believe.Ventures website, just in the store there.
The
You
War
can get
in
the audio
Heaven.
version of that.
Did you bring some with you?
Yes, if you want these, I have these in the car as well.
I might try
How
them.
much of it?
I'm happy to give them to you if you're here.
You're walking on
But the only
water.
thing is, if someone takes it, I just ask that you read it. Like, if you're gonna take one for free, read it at least.
That's a reasonable
So-
request.
Did you write this book?
This is one I wrote, and this is the one I talked about
Last
War in
time.
Heaven stuff last time.
And he takes donations too, because he's so good.
So you said it's also online on your Believe.Ventures?
Yeah, Believe.Ventures has the audio and ebook version that you can purchase as well. So if you like listening to it, that was done. And so we're excited about that. But if you want to stay and talk, I can chat for a while. These are fun things to talk about. Certainly appreciate being here. Appreciate all of you for your commitment to learning about liberty and those things.
Thank you.
And I still have a lot of
That was so
optimism.
good.
I
Appreciate
believe
it.
strongly that we can make some cool things. I don't think we have to be starving in the streets. I really don't.
But the safety in numbers of people who believe alike. And also
Yep.
being where the Lord plants you physically.
Yep.
You gotta be tuned into that.
Yeah, God will take us to all kinds of places, right? Because there's people everywhere. He has children everywhere he needs. He'll take us all kinds of places.
And I've heard lots of people being picked up and moved here, and move here, and move here. And so it's
And that is-
personal for each of us.
That is part of the grafting in Jacob chapter 5.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we almost lost her.